India's Akash-1S missile system. We're looking at why Brazil, well, flat out rejected it, but then Armenia actually went ahead and acquired the very same system. Today, we're jumping into the really fascinating, sometimes pretty opaque world of international defense deals. Procurement. It's amazing how just one decision, right? A country picking one weapon over another can tell you so much.
Yeah.
About the tech, yeah, but also strategy, geopolitics. And our subject today, it's a really curious one, India's Akash-1S missile system. We're looking at why Brazil, well, flat out rejected it, but then Armenia actually went ahead and acquired the very same system. Okay, let's unpack this.
That's right. And our mission here for you is to really dissect why Brazil said no to the Akash-1S. We'll look closely at the technical stuff, market competitiveness, what drove that decision. Then we pivot. We look at the, frankly, surprising geopolitical scene that led Armenia to say yes to that exact same missile. It really should illuminate for you that complex dance between technology and, well, international relations, how one piece of kit can have such different fates.
Okay, so let's start with Brazil. They were in the market, actively looking for a new medium-range surface-to-air missile system, a CAMM system. That's a pretty big deal for any country's air defense.
A very big deal. And the outcome, it was pretty clear-cut. Reports suggest Brazil basically swept aside India's offer, the Akash-1S. India was dropped from the running very early in that tender process.
Wow, swept aside. That's
Yeah.
strong. So the initial reports mentioned, technical issues, maybe a lack of cooperation. But can we dig deeper? What really made it a non-starter so quickly? Was it purely technical?
Well, the core issue, according to what we've seen, was that the Akash-1S was just considered technologically behind the curve, especially compared to the competition in that tender. You had systems like CAMM, CAMM the IRIS-T SL, and the Spider system, all featuring much more, well, up-to-date technologies.
Right, the competition was stiff. So let's get into those technical details. What specifically made the Akash-1S seem outdated? I'm particularly interested in its size versus performance.
Yeah, that's a key point. It's actually a significantly larger missile physically compared to many rivals. But despite that size, its range was only about 30 kilometers.
Only 30 kilometers. For a large missile, why so limited?
It comes down to the propulsion system. It uses a ramjet engine. Now, ramjets can be efficient at sustained high speeds, but it's a rather old design compared to modern rocket motors. It affects the overall performance envelope, including that effective range.
Okay, so an older engine limiting the range. What else?
The competitors often used far smaller missiles, but achieved longer ranges, sometimes up to 45 kilometers or even more, depending on the specific variant. So better power to weight, essentially. And another big thing was networking capability.
How it talks to everything else.
Exactly. How the system integrates into a wider air defense network. Sharing data, coordinating fire, that kind of thing. The Akash-1S's networking capabilities were seen as pretty out of date.
Which is a huge deal nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Network-centric warfare is key.
Absolutely. And the competitors, they were highlighting advanced networking as, prime features, major selling points.
So the Akash-1S really did seem to fall short on the technical side for Brazil's needs, which makes you wonder, was this genuinely the best India could offer? Or did they hold something back?
That's actually a really crucial point. Because what's fascinating here is that India did have a newer, much more advanced version in development already, the Akash NG, next generation.
Akash NG, so a better version existed.
Yes. And it addresses those key weaknesses. It swaps out that older ramjet for a modern dual-pulse rocket motor. That alone basically more than doubles the range. And it incorporates other new technologies too, much more capable.
So wait, they had the NG, but they offered the older 1S to Brazil. Why?
That's the strategic decision they made. India declined to put the Akash NG on the table for that tender. They stuck with the older Akash-1S. And you could say that decision pretty much sealed India's fate in the Brazilian competition.
Wow. That feels like a massive missed opportunity, like you said, bringing the old sedan when you had the Ferrari back home.
It certainly raises questions about their export strategy at that time.
Okay, so let's shift gears completely now.
Oh.
Brazil says no for very clear technical reasons, yet Armenia steps up and becomes the sole confirmed export customer for this same Akash-1S. How does that happen?
Yeah, it's a total pivot. And this is where the geopolitics just take over. Armenia's decision wasn't really about the cutting-edge tech specs. It was driven almost entirely by political necessity.
Political necessity. Okay, explain that.
Right, so you need to look at the timing and the context. Armenia's whole security perception changed drastically after the the Second Karabakh War with Azerbaijan.
That conflict really shifted things in the region.
Hugely. And one major consequence was a serious drop-off in relations between Armenia and Russia. Russia had traditionally been Armenia's main stable supplier of weapons. Russian weaponry formed the backbone of their military.
So that supply line became unreliable or politically difficult?
Exactly. That shift, that cooling of relations, left Armenia in a tough spot. They urgently needed a new, reliable supplier for heavy-duty military kit. And that's when they really turned towards India.
So India became an alternative to Russia?
Essentially, yes. And it wasn't completely out of the blue. Defense ties between India and Armenia had already started developing. Remember, Armenia had previously acquired India's Pinaka 220mm MLRS, that's a multiple launch rocket system. That deal sort of paved the way.
Okay, so there was an existing growing relationship there.
Yes. The Pinaka deal sparked things, and then the need created by the post-war situation, the break with Russia. It made the Akash-1S acquisition, despite its technical limitations compared to Western systems, a politically strategic move for Armenia. They needed systems, and India was a willing partner.
So there you have it. Two really contrasting stories for the same missile system. For you listening, you see Brazil making a decision based almost purely on technical merit and market competition.
Right, where the Akash-1S just didn't stack up against the newer Western options.
And then you have Armenia, where geopolitics, regional conflicts, shifting alliances, those factors became paramount.
Exactly. It powerfully emphasizes that in this world of defense deals, it's not always about having the absolute shiniest, newest technology. That matters, of course, especially in some markets. But geopolitical shifts, strategic partnerships, old and new, and frankly, sometimes just urgent need, can play an equal or even bigger role.
It really highlights the complex calculation involved.
It does, and it shows the kind of tightrope emerging defense exporters like India might walk. You need the top tech for demanding customers like Brazil potentially was, but sometimes geopolitical crises open doors for systems that might be, let's say, good enough for a nation facing immediate threats and shifting alliances like Armenia. It forces a juggle between long-term innovation and short-term strategic opportunity.
Absolutely. Which leaves us with a question for you to think about. How do these competing forces, technical excellence versus political expediency, constantly reshape the global defense landscape? What does this episode tell you about the true cost and maybe the true value of an arms deal in today's world? Something to mull over. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to stay ahead of the biggest shifts in aerospace, geopolitics, and defense innovation.